Welcome to the No BS Short-Term Rental Podcast, an unfiltered look into the global vacation and short-term rental industry.
I'm Mateo Bradford.
And I'm John Stokinger.
And this is our podcast. We bring the right people to the table at the right time, giving you an inside view and take on the short-term rental industry like no other podcast can.
Morning, Mateo. How are you?
Oh, man. Fantastic. How are you?
Great.
It's a great day, man.
It is a great day. What is it? Season
spring.
2, episode 16. Spring has sprung.
Yeah, spring has definitely sprung. I don't know what it's like where you are, but it's pretty nice out here.
It was over the weekend. It was 70s. It was nice. I mean, unseasonably warm. You know, we've sprung forward. You know, so that's kind of nice. You know, getting a little bit.
It's so brutal though. Like I don't recover well from the spring forward. It's so weird. My sleep is not the same, and not to get into and hijack and start talking about like sleep patterns, but like I don't know why it affects me so much.
But I guess the Senate has already passed to keep it at spring forward. So we'll see if it actually goes through. We might not have any spring forward fallback anymore. We'll see what happens. I think it's just smoke and mirrors for other things, but let's talk about some really things that have no significance in everyone's daily lives. We'll make this a big news story, but I know I say this a lot, but this is truly one of my favorite people on the pod today. I don't know how to go ahead and say it. So I met her at my first conference I ever been to. Like before I met you, I went to the Streamline Summit. It was the first summit I ever went to, a first, short-term rental conference. And I met her there, and I'll get into the story later, but like we've had a great relationship for the 5 years I've been in the industry. And I'm super stoked to be joined today by Jennifer Mucha, founder and CEO of Arrived. How are you, Jennifer?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I have no idea what that means, that your introduction to the industry was through me. It might be a good thing or it might be a bad thing. That's scary. My take on it might not be normal, but I am very glad we met.
I'm glad we met too. And so it was my first, I was with Ascent back then. I'd been there. I think I joined in May, and I think this is in September. I think the next one I went to is where I met Mateo down in Gatlinburg, but it was my first actual like meeting of different vendors, and it was Streamline. So it was a pretty big, Streamline throws on a nice show, and it's a great event. And I was just getting my chops wet. And this is the story I remember. And please tell me if you remember it differently. I was sitting there with my coworker at that time, and I was like, who are we going to go ahead and try to get? And I saw you, and I said, and I totally prejudged you. And I said, she looks like she knows what she's doing. And we're going to take her out to dinner. And I went up and I introduced myself to you. I said, do you have plans tonight? We're getting some people together. Would you like to come out to dinner with us? And is that how you recollected it as well?
Totally sounds right. I think you said there's a sucker and you completely misjudged me. But little did you know I was actually looking for credit card processing, which like true story. So I had another company that I was going to go talk to. You just caught me. It was meant to be.
It was good. And the interesting thing is, I've jumped around. I've updated my career. We'll leave it that way throughout these 5 years. And
I told John last year, I said, I am so proud of you. I can't even believe what I met and what you are now. Very impressive.
I actually know what you're talking about. Actually,
no, it's for real. Like in a good way. Like the whole thing. It's just fun to watch. I mean, we all strive to grow and change and whatever. he's lived it for the last 5 years. It's been fast and amazing and fun to watch.
And I'll give him his flowers, and he's grown. He's polished himself up a little bit,
He's
it was there. You can't make something out of nothing. So he was definitely there, and he's doing his thing. So we'll give you your flowers now. Well done. So
thanks. But let's talk about you. Like, I'm looking at your LinkedIn, and usually I'm going to go ahead and look at someone's LinkedIn, and you're going to have like 5 or 6 or 7 different different things going on, and what you're in your experience column. And your experience column is one thing. It's Arrived LLC for 18 years, 1 month. Like how? And first telling the audience who you are. I mean, what Arrived is, and I mean, I know, but tell them in your words, about your company, and then like, how did you get from where you are, where you were to where you are today?
Yeah, how did I actually get to that one thing on my LinkedIn?
Well, I know there's more. You didn't just come out and just.
See, he's going to drag you down that rabbit hole we were just talking about.
No, it's sort of the same story as everybody else. It was a little bit earlier than a lot of companies, a little bit later than a few. So I used to be a real estate appraiser, actually, and my husband's a realtor. So when we were in our 20s, or I don't even know how old we are. I'm 23 still, I swear. But when we were looking at our lives and going, wait a second, we don't have a 401k, it seemed way more interesting to invest in a vacation rental than to start throwing money into some version of an IRA or something like that. So, so we bought a vacation rental about 15 miles from where we live. And this was 19 or 20 years ago, and put it with a property management company for all of about 6 months. And when we put it with a property management company, we actually had Verbo as a thing in the back of our head. So we immediately put it on Verbo, as well as putting it with a property management company. Well, we put it with VRBO because we had stayed in one time, like on our honeymoon, I guess. I don't know. In Maui, maybe. So we put it on there ourselves. And I was the one that was doing all the bookings off season. So for those first 6 months, I was doing all the bookings off season. The property management company would hire the cleaners and do that part of it. And then they would already have the bookings for the summer, and I would have to pay them a huge percentage for the summer. And I was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense at all. I'm the one that's filling in the off seasons. I live 15 minutes away. I can do this all myself, not pay them a percentage of the peak season, and just kind of do it. We had small kids. So I started doing that. And then the recession hit, maybe, I don't know, not very much later. So I started helping other people manage their properties. I didn't really like being a real estate appraiser during the recession. It was not so fun.
And
I can imagine. Yeah,
and I actually I don't know that I've ever shared this, but my mom was the owner of the business that I was doing real estate appraising for. And she was like, are you going to take over the business? And I was like, no, I'm good. It just there's such a glass ceiling. There's nothing you can do with it. There was no challenge. There was nothing interesting there. So at that time, that you were working in your mom's real estate company, was your husband a realtor at that same company or a different company? No, because I only did appraisals. And so you have to have those separate from real estate. So I mean, it's like the same industry, and the same industry as vacation rentals, which is kind of why I brought it up. But it's, we kind of all had our toe in the real estate, like thinking that's a fun investment because you see it and know it and kind of understand it. I also think that appraisal background is actually a huge part of why I know how to price and why I've been able to price things now.
Right.
Which we can talk about later. But I mean, that my mind works that way. I can think that way. I only did that for probably 4 years of my life, but it clicked and I knew how to do it. So when it came to vacation rentals, it was the same thing. Like, how do you look at it in a way that can monetarily make it the highest value of anything there? So when the recession hit and I decided I didn't want to do appraisals, I started helping people that we knew that had vacation rentals in Sun River, and I had small kids. I would take on, one house a year. And I actually, so this was probably 16 or 17 years ago. We've lived in the same house that entire time. We were moving last spring. I found my 3-ring binder last spring of the first year I was in business. It's kind of awesome. 15 pages of here's their credit. I probably had their credit card information written there. Just kidding. I don't know. There was their name and address and email. You have to print off everything. It all came from VRBO and the pages of stuff you'd print off from there. So
it's amazing. Do you have it like encrusted in bronze, and it's like on your mantle now, or
It
in
is.
your office.
I threw away so much stuff when we moved. I'm not a hoarder, but when I found that stuff, I throw away a lot of things. And that I was like, no, that's kind of a legacy at this point. That's not going anywhere. I need to remember. I would have told you a year and a half ago, I would have told you it was off of spreadsheets. I forgot about those 3-ring binders. So it was fun to see.
Handwritten ledgers and binders. Oh no, that's got to go into the short-term rental like Hall of Fame, or like if they do a hospitality museum. Yeah, you should definitely keep that.
It's up there with tape charts.
Ooh.
Do we not
And
like
DOS.
tape chart?
And
Is that
DOS
a thing?
PMS is
DOS? Well, that's the thing is for VRBO back then, it looked DOS based. I mean, it was so basic, but it was a platform. And that's actually, I used that for the SEO for the first few years. I went to SEO classes and learned how to do it for my website, but all I had to do was go onto VRBO and build out the house with keywords. And that house was at the top of every search you could do on whatever search engines we used to have. So
this is pre-pay-per-click, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I think we were on what was the search engine with the lighthouse? That one. I think we were using that probably.
Oh, Netscape.
Remember that?
Was that Netscape? Oh wow. I didn't even remember the logo from Netscape. Like I remember the name, but I don't remember the logo.
Yeah, that's pretty good memory, Jennifer. I've been watching the impeachment story on FX. It's come over to Hulu, so I've been watching that on Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, and they've been having a lot of like AOL shots and Drudge Report and watching like the screen fill up really slowly going down. Those that you're listening, you're not going to see it, but listening to the old modem sounds on that, man, it brought back some memories.
Up.
Yeah.
I forgot about that, how the lines would kind of come down slowly. We didn't even have the spinning circle of death back then.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely different. Just slowly loading and you're just sitting there waiting and listening, even to get on. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many years, like when you were just helping, right? And obviously you're I'm hoping you're charging for it, but you're helping. How many years before you're doing this and helping other property managers or other homeowners at this time list their properties in Sun River before you decided to make an official move to arrived? And where you arrived back then? Was
Nope.
that you?
I was Sun River Pines. And I was Sun River Pines until about 6 years ago. It was not very long before I met you, actually. So I started in Sun River, built it up there. And I immediately, before I took on the first client down there, I kind of did it. I mean, in hindsight, I did it the right way. I just said, look, I'm going to go talk to an attorney and see if we can figure out a way to do this. I'm going to set up a contract. I didn't want to be one of those people that was putting money into an account and spending it on my groceries and then trying to pay out the owner at the end of the month. So set up the account, set up the contracts with the owners to kind of keep it legit. I have a business background, that's my focus in life. So kind of wanted to do it the right way and built it up that way. Always stayed in Sun River, had no thoughts of going outside of Sun River until about 10 or 12 years ago, maybe at the most. And we go to Kauai a lot. So I'd sit on the beach every Thanksgiving, working on my phone, probably a BlackBerry back then, working on my BlackBerry, and the kids would be playing in the waves. And I could be, renting out the houses, talking to the housekeepers, all these things, and not being at home, and nobody knew it. So that was kind of amazing. And I started going, okay, wait a minute, let's build this up. So my husband and I would sit there talking about how could he have a real estate business in Kauai? I could, work from wherever, have somebody on site doing inspections and things like that. So we kind of had a plan to expand over time, kind of started looking at some property. We weren't ready to yet, but kind of starting to get a feel for what it would take to do it. And I had a house that was in Bend that was in our neighborhood where I was just kind of taking care of it for some people, kind of a concierge service more, just because we knew them and they were kind of high profile people that needed some help. They didn't use it very often. That house sold and my now business partner bought it. So he came in and thought my business looked really fun. He had retired at the ripe age of 55 and thought that this looked fun, I guess. And little did he know how fun it is. So we went into business together.
I've met him. We've had some conversations before.
Yep. So we went into business together, which was a great thing because I love business. I have the business background, but I'm a people person. I'm a marketing person. I'm a pricing person. I can tell you what kind of house is going to rent well, help you get it there. He takes care of HR and accounting and all this stuff that is just, and I don't have any interest to learn it, right? Like, I mean, it's there and I'm glad it's there and it's important, but some things you just, why focus on that? So we're
Work
very
your
compatible
strengths.
business-wise. The yin and yang of business right here.
It's
So
important.
it is. And so we kind of, because we were combining forces, we could do some acquisitions. So we transitioned about 7 years ago, I believe it was, to focusing on doing acquisitions. I kind of put that whole Kauai idea aside. And that first Streamline conference that I went to, which I think was before I met you, it was a couple of years.
I think it was at least a year before, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I met a lady that owned a company called Bend Vacation Rentals, which is 12 miles from Sun River, where I started. It was in the town where I lived. They used Streamline, which is the software I used, and she wanted to sell. So within 15 minutes of meeting her, we had an idea. So that was our first acquisition. It took a year. I mean, things take a long time. She has to get ready to sell. We have to get our ducks in a row. So, so that started the acquisition process. So we expanded via acquisition to Bend, Palm Springs, Hood River, Kauai, and Oahu. So we have all of those locations that we wanted to know.
The whole Hood River thing has been pretty fantastic. Obviously, I have a little bit of background there. You and I have talked. I lived there for 3 years,
Yep.
but what I liked about even 2 years ago, you had like just a handful of properties in Hood River. If I were to go on your website right now, it's your second biggest market. Like,
we're killing it in Hood River and I love it. And I will tell you something about that in acquisition. So at that point, about 2 years ago, it was probably September of 2019, right before COVID hit, we decided that we were done with the acquisitions for a while. We wanted to work on streamlining our process, streamlining our employees, get a really strong foundation, which was good timing with COVID. We didn't know that, but it was. The acquisition process is very interesting. When you acquire a company, the owners of the homes often take it as a chance to relook at everything. So you may do better than what their company has done. You may do the same as what their company's done. It's always going to be different. So they're going to relook at it. We're better than most. So we're not going to go in and be worse than anybody, but they don't know that. And they have a relationship with the company that they signed up with, and they're loyal to some extent to that. As soon as somebody new comes in, you have to
earn that trust all over again.
You do. Yeah. So you have to have a really strong foundation, which is kind of where we went. Okay, let's look at this and get this, lined out so that we can make sure we keep owners happy and do what, our goal is happy owners and happy guests. How do we do that? Here's how we do it. We fix the little details to make sure that it's perfect when anybody joins. So Hood River is a perfect example of that. I mean, there are short-term restrictions in that town that are pretty overwhelming. And we went in and brought in the technology and brought in the commitment to see the owners through, and they've seen it. We brought it from, an old school technology and an old school mindset to what it is today. And it's been fun to watch. And we have a great team on the ground. The lady that works with our owners there, which is, kudos to her, because that's how we've grown so well there. She's been with us since we bought Hood River Vacation Rentals. So she's amazing. She knows the town, she knows the market, she knows Arrived, she knows how to promote that. And that's been super, super huge and helpful.
Isn't that key though, in the turnover and the transition from one entity to the next? That's one of the things I wanted to ask is like, if the relationship is good with the management company before, how do they help kind of massage that transition into, or do they? Speaking on that process, I don't necessarily know how that goes. Like, are there things that they can do that help make that an easier kind of decision for their owners to say, hey, I trusted this company. This is who they're selling to. This is who that company is. Because I know with smaller entities, you can do that, right? Like with bigger corporations, it's strictly corporate. It's very cut and dry. But where the relationship is important with property managers, that's vastly important, right? That they're trusting you and they want to know that you're not just going to, see this as a transaction, but also, take the time and care and understand that that's something that they're looking at, a relationship that's important to them, and that they're trusting you with their property and to be a good steward of that property. So I don't know how that goes.
Yeah, I think there's two things. One, is geography. So we, I think Hood River has been so successful partly because it's close to Bend. So I can drive up there for the day, work with the office team, go through 3 or 4 houses, know what I'm seeing and knowing what I'm talking about. So if somebody that's, it's an owner and say they've been with Hood River Vacation Rentals for 10 years before, if I talk to them, they know I'm up there all the time. They know that I know the area, the location. They feel that it's still a local company, which it is. I mean, it's the same employees working there. It's the same everything. It's just a different software and management team, in the background. So, so bringing in the benefits of that with the same local thing. I think the other thing is the people. And so that's the hardest part. So when you do an acquisition, the employees do the exact same thing as the owners. The employees are like, oh, should I go get another job? Oh, they do it differently. I'm not sure I want to be part of that different thing.
Right.
You have to get them to buy into it. That's hard too. You have to massage that too.
Absolutely.
So, and honestly, I think that's probably even harder than the owners is, I could tell you stories. It's hard.
No, I believe it. I've actually seen that part. I've seen that be the challenge for companies that grow and scale through acquisition. And so I always sit in the background. My management company manages one boutique hotel. So, and I struggle through that. And it's like, when you see and you really think about not just the transactional parts of it, the numbers, yes, that all has to come out, but it's what do you do with the people? How do you keep the culture, right? Like, how does that transition? And it really matters how you do it. And I think a lot of people have learned that how important that is now, that it's not just a numbers thing. And so they invest that time and energy in really learning how to, but and again, it's weeding it out. It's a business, because sometimes those employees got to go, right? Like they're not, they may be a reason that, it's just not a good fit for them. And having the wherewithal to be able to really take the time to figure that out. But kudos, love the growth.
There's always bumps in the road, and everyone we learn from. So that was the thing, was I can go back. Bend Vacation Rentals, the first one we bought, actually went the best. And as we go back and, and relook at that, it helps us know what to do on the next ones. So it's always a learning experience, and I don't like being bored. So it gives us a challenge on each new one that we run into to do that. But 2 years ago, we did decide to move away from acquisitions for a little while. That's not to say we won't do anymore. We're always looking and, in the middle of stuff, but we decided to take a break and build up that foundation so that the next acquisitions we do, we'll have a different foundation to move in on. So it's been nice. And then we work on organic growth in the areas that we have. We actually use Vintory to bring in the leads for that. We use the technology part of it because I have a 3-ring binder from my first days, but I'm telling you, it's always been about technology and doing it different. And it's, the playbook that I went by was put it on Verbo, get your SEO off of Verbo, all these things. The property management companies back then were doing those little, the little realtor flyer things, and they would have them on the coffee tables in the houses in Sun River, and people would circle the house that they wanted to stay at next summer when they came. So that's kind of the generation that I started the business in, and look how far we've come to where, I never wanted to go that route. I never wanted to do paper marketing. I never wanted to send out postcards to my owners. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means that's not what route I took. And so I love what I do now, which is to market online, retargeting, and all these things that we have. Slightly creepy, but they're great.
Well, I think, you've always wanted to have a high touch by hands off approach. How do we take care of our owners? And I love your happy owners and happy guests. How do you do all the things, but with taking, using the tech that's around you to go ahead and do that? And how is that working? You mentioned having, the acquisition of Hood River and being able to drive up there and be, however many hours away is. It's an easy drive to go there and spend a day there and then go home. How does that work in, when you're in Palm Springs and when you're in Kauai and when you're on the Oregon coast, which is definitely a little bit further drive? Like, how do you go ahead and ease I don't want to say tensions, but the problems that come up in early stages of acquisitions when you can't get there easily?
Yeah, you fly. Because really in person is the best thing, right? Like I can get on the phone, I can get on Zoom, I can text, I can be in their eyes and ears and hair and everything all you want, but you have to go be in person to really understand what somebody's like and what they're doing. So for them to know that I actually care, the people on the ground in that location, for them to know that I actually care about them and the homes that they're managing and all those things, when bumps come up at the road, they just drop it and go, because even if it turns out to be nothing, then you've, like you said, created that culture of we're all in this together. Here we are. That's been one of the hardest things. And I will say that like, it's not insurmountable, but having somebody that can go, be the point in those locations and build up those relationships with the teams and the owners in the locations, that's hard. So Kauai and Palm Springs are a little slower at growing because we just don't have the feet on the ground. And if you have employee transition, then it starts the process over again. So then it's a little bit slower.
Right.
So there are
Social
other
capital.
factors that go, there's other factors that go into locations and how they succeed too. But that's why I say geography is huge, because you can get up there.
Well, at least you're picking geography that's beautiful and sunny and warm too, as well. You're not picking like, you're not picking like, some like cold, desolate place. I was going to name some place. I'm like, oh, that's not a good idea. So
I know.
Really vague.
We do love all the places.
We love all the places here.
Yeah, I can't see a bad spot that you manage. Like, I love all these places. And it's great to see, and it's Oregon, Homer. It's great to see Oregon, represented. I think, it's a huge industry. Yeah. Speaking like we were talking about news, what the news, this made my year when they announced a couple of weeks ago. I was actually in Oregon when they made the announcement that they're opening Canita back up.
I know, that's huge, right?
Oh, I was Cliff Johnson and I were talking about this alone. There's like, man, somebody's got to put something together, because like Canita can't just go away. It's the perfect place. And John, John doesn't know what Canita
for those that are listening, what is Canita?
Canita it used to be this resort. So it's on an Indian reservation, a couple hours outside of Portland on the way in the Central Desert. And it was just amazing. It was a hotel, it was a golf course, it was a resort. It had like a pool,
hot
like
springs, and
they
were fed by a hot spring, so it was warm all the time.
Yeah, it was unique for its time. But like for me growing up, like I loved it. I was just, we're going to Canita. I knew I was going to enter to. I was going to be in the water all day, and it closed down a couple years ago. And I don't remember the exact date that it closed, but I was like, I was heartbroken. I was like, well, somebody's going to do this. How much money is it going to take? Sitting up here, like trying to figure out ways, because, number one, their economy needs it, just being very real. The economy needs it. And I think it's good for tourism overall to have something that's bringing people out into that area. And I guess that's one of the things I want to talk to you too, because it seems like Central Oregon and those areas are seeing a lot of growth. Are seeing a lot of people. And I don't know if it's pandemic or the jobs or whatever, is how much of your business in terms of your entire portfolio are you seeing coming out of these kind of Oregon markets, or these new emerging markets in Oregon?
Huge amounts. It definitely was always, you'd have a steady stream of people investing and buying and visiting in Central Oregon. And the vast majority would say, this is where we're going to retire. This is our favorite place to come. We've been coming here for 30 years, all these things. So when the pandemic hit and people could work from home, or when they had some extra money so they could, invest in something, it's kind of boomed. I think like it has everywhere. And by kind of, I mean, yes, huge.
Where does that, with all this that's going on, where does that put, I know you took some time, your acquisition, hat was off for a couple of years. And I think that's fantastic, by the way. I think the companies that were able to go ahead and when the pandemic hit and kind of look internally of like, how can we build this foundation? How can we go ahead and ensure growth or ensure whatever we're looking to do after, when things open back up again? I think the companies that did that were very smart. Now that it's over, and I'm using air quotes for those who can't see, because we don't know what the hell is happening next month. where do you see Arrive going? Like where, like are you on the, I know you mentioned that you're open to anything, previously in conversation we've had, you've always been down to, for the right opportunity at the right time. You're at 300 units, where does Arrive go from here?
Yeah.
This is such a not business answer. I fully believe in God. And so I think he has a plan and he'll tell us what it is when it's time. So yeah, open to anything, right? Like it's going to happen anyway. That being said, my business mind has ideas. I'm not going to stop growing. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I don't like being bored. I think there'll be some acquisitions in the, in the local market. I think it would be silly to not in the, I'll probably be a little bit more picky geographically because of the things that we've talked about. It's more fun, when you're geographically close to where you're living or spending time. That doesn't mean I am opposed to, moving somewhere to grow geographically either.
Right.
My roots are all over the West Coast. So, somewhere on the West Coast. But I think we're going to keep growing. I think we're going to see, some doubling here in the next couple of years, and a lot of it from organic growth. But I think it's going to be, I think there'll be an acquisition or two in there to keep it growing. And it's going to be a stronger, more peaceful looking business because we are so grounded in what we do now. What we've learned the details of how to grow like this, how to grow in different places. And it's just I think it's just going to roll. It's going to feel good.
That's awesome. You mentioned earlier, and we talked about tech, and we talked about, how you're kind of a details and nerd about, understanding, and I'm saying that in a positive,
Oh, I'm a data nerd. I'm a techie nerd.
So we're talking data, and we're talking, you used to do, organically do your all all your own SEO. What I'm assuming that you're plugged into as much data as you possibly can get. And recently there's been some, like just this past week and a week and a half, there's been some really big, data news in our space. Both Transparent was purchased by OTA Insights, so they can go ahead and offer both hotel and short-term rental data. And then AirDNA was acquired by Alpine Investors. Like, I'm not sure exactly, obviously I understand the play from these investors and why they want to go ahead and do that. I'm not sure if you're using either one of those providers for data outside of, or if you're using key data, it doesn't really matter. Like, what does that do for a company like yourself? Like, what are you seeing with these acquisitions for tools that you use?
So we currently use key data. That being said, we've been working with Transparent for the last few months. They're trying to pull together some stuff that key data hasn't. It's interesting. I don't understand the tech part of it enough to tell you why. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you, but we would love to have a dashboard, like ideally that's just pulled straight into Streamline, right? But if we had one dashboard that could show us everything. So you have like key data that has worked with like revenue and numbers and occupancy and all these things, right? Well, what about all of our work orders and our vendors and the costing on those? And so housekeeping costing, linen costing. What about our inspectors that go out and inspect? How many inspections did they do a day? And what kind of loss or, did we have with that? How efficient are they? So you start pulling in that. I'd love that data, right? I mean, there's a million things that you can start asking for, but I don't want 7 different dashboards for it. I want somebody that can pull all of it into one. Right. Because I just sit there and look at that stuff, and then I go and mess with my pricing, and I look at that stuff and I go and talk to my employees about a better way to do work orders, or I go and look at that stuff and I go buy a car so they can take the car to do inspections, whatever it is, like there's just stuff that you can see from data. The more data you have, the more things you can see. And that's how you make an efficient business, is watching it. So I can either go and try to pull it from 7 different sources, or I can have a company like Transparent build something that I can see it through.
Now, with a company like Transparent, like they do what they do, right? But couldn't you And I think a big part of it is cost. And because if you were to go ahead and you add up every one of those things that we've mentioned, and depending on the data sets you're trying to go ahead and look at, if it's, for a company like, say, Hopper, like we're looking for global data sets, and the cost of that is insane, right? As opposed to like, featured markets, but you're still looking at 1, 2, 3, 6, 7 markets where you have, a footprint in. Would getting this data and using tools like Power BI and getting a data scientist or data analyst to work for your team to go ahead and put this in a dashboard? There's so many different ways to go ahead and get to where you're trying to get, but what is the correct way? And I don't know if there is a correct way yet. And it depends on the software you're using as well.
It totally does. And that's the thing, is like, I'm kind of watching it piece together, right? Because they start pulling in, all these companies like Key Data or Transparent, or is it LSI? There's another reporting.
LSI tools, and then there's AirDNA, and then there's
so you can start seeing now, the big thing is that now you can start seeing the other companies, right? So like I can now go and look and see what my competitors in each market are doing. So they can make a data set, and I can see how many, like say Vacasa, let's use them as an example because they're there, whatever. So Vacasa, gets whatever percentage from Airbnb. I can see that. I can see what Vacasa is renting each house for per night in comparison to mine. So I can literally compare my occupancy, my everything, to any number of things I want to do. But then that doesn't necessarily go into the same dashboard as everything else. So you're kind of watching all these great ideas come, and they're all kind of out there, and somebody's going to pull it all together efficiently and put it in one big thing for us. So some companies seem to be a little bit further ahead than the other, but it does not surprise me that they're getting, the Transparent thing didn't surprise me. The AirDNA thing didn't surprise me. And I think that's because, our business, look at where we've come. I joke about how long I've been in it, but really in the real time, it's not been that long. And look, we're talking about Netscape, and now we're talking about making a dashboard with all this stuff pulled straight out of everything. Our industry is so fast paced and changing all the time. Our whole world is, but this industry in particular is new and changing. I love it, which is exciting. It's exciting to see it happen.
I'm with you. I want to see that dashboard too. And I think, we need another push for an open API for us to be able to build something like that. And when we get our act together as an industry and agree to that, then we'll have one of the tools that we're always asking for. One thing, one sort, like, to make it happen. So.
And I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I feel like that I tend to not love a lot of roll up in tech, because then you're like, part of a monopoly potentially, but really it's kind of where we want to go, right? Because I've always used Streamline because they can integrate with all these things that I want to integrate with directly. Well, if you take an open API and you have a whole bunch of roll ups in the industry, you now have what we're all looking for, which is access to it all.
Yeah, I think, a big part of the holdup for the open API is that there's a lot of bandwidth and a lot of legwork that needs to be done to clean up like really shitty code. There's been and it is what it is. Like you get to, if you're 10 years of working on the same code structure and you are to where you are today, and you're just doing patchwork code to go ahead and make that continue to work. Now you want to go ahead and make it a unified, clean code for everyone. Like you basically you're starting from scratch. You're taking all this, everything you've built for 10 years. And now all right, how do I go ahead and put this in a universal clean code? And I'm speaking as a total person that knows nothing about it. I just hear rumors that the code's shitty.
I don't disagree that the code is shitty. I mean, you look at all the products that are out there that have bugs and don't work. Like, again, I think what you need to do is what comes on with a common or a universal API is also universal standards. So you have universal kind of information points that you can, and I'm the last guy, but I feel like you could build an algorithm that can pull that information into that format, right?
Yeah. Look at Airbnb and Booking.com and how hard it is to fill in all the boxes. So everybody's tried, right? They've tried to make it so that Airbnb, which is a unique kind of a mentality when they were built, because they were a merchant of record and all that, can then, coordinate with Booking.com, which is built on a hotel platform, which is a whole different set of boxes to check, literally boxes to check as you build out a house. So just that alone, trying to clean that up, to have an open API. Everybody calls a bedroom something different. Everybody calls a queen bed, something different. And that's just the start of all this complication it would take a lot of work. You guys are exactly right.
We're seeing it on our front, building out, Hopper Homes. We're seeing a huge amount of, of trying to go in, like we have a ton of aggregated inventory that we're bringing in from different places, and some work with turning it on, and some just, there's a lot more legwork that our developers are, knee deep in trying to go ahead and get figured out. And they are, because we hire the best, but it's time consuming. And then, the interesting thing with tech, and I know that anyone that has bought and sold and works in tech and is waiting for, like, hey, something's going to go live on, say, in 30 days. Well, it's tech, 30 days could be 6 months from now. You never know with everything and that's coming up. It's interesting.
Well, I see it at the hotel too. You look at, so talking about where the industry is going and moving to, right? Like I have a boutique hotel that I run like short-term rentals, like 18 individual short-term rentals. So you're right. Every platform has a different name for the rooming types. Like I don't even understand to this day how I have it set up on booking.com, but it's on booking.com. But I look at like how I have the wording and like the names, and I'm just like, this is crazy, but I'm getting bookings, so I'm not really messing with it. So I'm just leaving it alone. Yeah. But I still don't understand it. And then I'm looking at what I do for Expedia, what I had to do for VRBO, and what I had to do for Airbnb. And thank God I have a property management software system that actually fits this.
Do you use a property management software?
Yeah, no, I definitely do.
Yeah.
So I use
Nice.
and again, I don't know, shamefully, I use Hostfully. So that's who I use for the hotel, because in my search, it fit the best. It was cost effective for me, and it did the integrations that I needed for right now. But is it perfect for that? No, but it works. It's the best that I was exposed to work for that product. And it's what I could afford, to be honest.
Yeah. There's not a right fit for it's not the same for every single,
Well, Jennifer, I want a couple things I wanted to talk about before we wrap this up. Number one, it's been awesome getting to know you over these 5 years, and
right back at you, John.
And to see you grow and to see you scale. And I'm super excited to see you mentioned doubling. Like, I can't wait to see that. I can't wait to see arrived at 600 units. That's awesome to me. And we'll have you back on, and talk about that growth and talk about like what worked and what didn't. I'm super stoked for that. The other thing I wanted to shoot, I had it there and I lost it. I wanted to, oh yes, here it is. So I wanted to apologize to you for inviting you to go to the Northwest VRP and say, hey, I'm gonna be there. And then you go, all right, cool, we're gonna go ahead and do this. And then you get tickets. And then I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm going to be in New York City.
Just left me high and dry, John.
I know. So I'm apologizing for. With that said, I am we'll see each other soon.
Yay.
But
let me know when you go out there, man. I might meet you out there. We may need to go out and do an episode out there.
Yeah.
I'll
probably have a great place for you to stay.
Probably.
I'm saying
maybe I might. If they're not all booked already, you better plan ahead.
Right.
I want basically what do you have to offer to other property managers that are looking to scale? Because not everyone's looking to scale. We talk about this a lot on the podcast. We talk about, that people are happy, where they are. They're they got 25 units and we're good. We're living a comfortable lifestyle and everything's good and there's no reason. You obviously saw the value in scaling. And because in your words, you get bored. And so, you don't like being bored. And so you're a business mindset and that's who you are. And so you're constantly, and I don't want to say scurrying, but that's kind of like you're looking for your next venture, your next opportunity. For those that are looking for a next opportunity and want to scale, like what suggestions do you have, or what like words of wisdom do you have for companies that were in your position, say 10 years ago?
Do your research. Like we were just talking about, there's not one software for everyone. There's not one product for everyone. There's not one kind of business for everyone. Our business model is different than probably every single other vacation rental property management company. You think it's funny. I'll see people on a platform asking, oh, what do you guys do about this? And I'm like, why would you ask somebody else? And nobody does the same thing twice. And, figure out what you want to do for your business, your area geographically, for the employee base that you have, what works for the employee base, and start from the ground up and do research the people, research the houses, research the owners, research what technology you need to do, and then definitely use technology whenever you can instead of people. Not to be, you can't use it for everything, but use it where you can. It's there, it's efficient, it's cost effective.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us. Do you have anything else, or you want to do your own podcast next time? Do you want to take over?
Yes, but I have to think of a really good idea first. Just kidding.
How about this? Why don't we come to Bend? We can meet. I found out my boy, one of the guys I grew up with in Portland owns the Dogwood cocktail.
Oh yeah, down at the Old Mill.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Doug
Nice.
and I went. So if you know Doug, just post up and John,
I'll go down there and find
do
him.
a live broadcast. Oh yeah, no, definitely. I'm gonna harass him after this and let him know.
Yeah.
But no, definitely tell him we met.
Awesome. I will.
But
thanks
I
so
look
much.
forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel honored.
Oh, it's our honor. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Take care.